marine vessels are facing a lot of problems because most of the seafarer employment agreement have to be extended. As you know, the MLC states that the maximum time that the seafarer has to be on board is 11 months, and after that he has to go to holidays. But in this moment, due to a lot of restrictions from the countries, they cannot be repatriated. The overtime on board, of course, plus the situation living with the families in those countries of the crew members I'm talking about, may provoke fatigue, okay, stress, and mental issues. Situations can provoke deconcentration in the daily responsibility and duties affecting the safety of the ship. For those reasons, the ship operator has been forced to extend those contracts. Most of the time because the port terminals, customs, hotels, airport, or flights restrictions. Now, in the same point of view, the vessels are facing also some situations because most of them are coming to the due date. In a specific case, I will take one example, which is the outside ship bottom inspection, which is very important. You know that after 36 months, the vessel for the previous dry dock or outside ship bottom inspection, the vessel have to go to the dry dock. And in this situation, we have facing a lot of problems because we have some vessels with more than 36 months, 38, 39, up to 42 months, including without inspection of the bottom survey. The local restrictions have been affected the normal movement of the class surveyor also. As you know, we have the Merchant Marine Circular 156. That's an additional survey equivalent to at least of an annual survey required by the relevant certificate should be carried out, you know, before the classification society authorize the vessel. I mean, we authorize, but they have to be satisfied in order to the vessel to the dry dock be extended. The local restrictions have affected this movement of the surveyor. Okay, the surveyor sometimes, though they are not allowed to reach the port terminal because customs problems or even the flights or the airport is closed, and yeah, even they receive the vessel, sometimes the dry dock have not working with the full manpower. Most of the dry docks in the main point of the COVID was working only with the 30% of the manpower. In the case of the vessels like tankers, specifically tankers and bulk carriers with more than 36 months from the last outside ship bottom inspections, most of them, they are waiting time to discharge in the port terminal because no tanker in the front tanker terminal, they have not space to receive the cargo. One of our main goals is to help the ship owner and operators to avoid port state control detentions, of course, or remarks. As you see in one side, we have a flag state wants to the ship to comply with all the statutory and national regulations, and in other sides, we have the compromise to allow keeping the supply chain, considering the fact, in addition to the ship IMO statutory compliance and cargo. What happened in this moment? We are in the middle of the situation, and we have to take also in account that plus the situation of the COVID, in this year, 2020, we have some vessels have to install the ballast water treatment plant, also the exhaust gas scrubbers installation, and also the compliance with the bunker data collection, with the consequent unavailability of the dry docks. The situation is not in our hands, has a flag. Looking the restrictions given by other states still today, where we cannot impose procedures because it's not our country. In a way, is not a kind of commercial view considerations nowadays. We can see that this situation becomes also humanitarian. Humanitarian not also for the crew members on board, but also for the surveyors, for the class surveyors that sometimes have to face some risks regarding the COVID-19 if they have to move from the original place to the port terminal. We believe under these circumstances, in this moment, the port state control, as we face already in this experience, the port state control is looking more deep in the situation regarding the crew on board, the competence, and the situations if they are more, if they have reached the 11 months or more on board. This time they are not looking deeply, or they are not taking too much care, is our opinion, of the structural situation of the ship, the safety of navigation, and other items. That's because we consider that the strategy of the implementation of the remote survey and the technology should be made in two different scenarios, under COVID-19 and in the normal situation. Okay, I will explain why in advance, because in normal situations, the port state control will act more in those items, okay, which are related with the safety of the navigation, pollution, and other items, which help us as a flag to take some idea if those remote surveys are really effective to avoid port state control detention or remarks. Okay, then regarding the second point, which is the challenges regarding the innovation and implementation to the new technology, we divide in 4 points, which we consider are the challenges regarding the implementation of these tools, okay, for the survey. One is the recognizing organization key platforms that are reliable. Second one, enough technological tools in situ, I mean associated technology, okay. Number 3, need one inspector or assistant on board or designated person, who I will explain point by point. And the last one, which is one of the more important, the internet provider bandwidth, okay. In the first case, recognized organization key platforms, the platforms provided by the recognized organization to perform the survey on behalf of the flag state should be sufficient in terms of stability and could be adapted to the circumstances regarding the latitude where the vessels is anchored, given a real environment and continuous communication. Second, enough security to avoid losing of information, data collection, interrupted videos, or corrupted information. Number 2, enough technological tools means the associated technology on board has a cameras, 2 or 3 cameras, I believe, tools, devices, or unmanned aerial system, which is the drones, with a power supply or battery with long-term autonomy to avoid interruption in the inspection, also adapted to the environmental conditions. Number 3, need one inspector or assistant. Yes, of course, somebody has to manipulate those tools on board. A designated person to manipulate the devices and assist the class into the survey should be capable and well-trained, especially in those cases when manipulated of drones is necessary. This person should be informed by the class about the procedures and the importance and responsibility over this assistance. And also the internet provider bandwidth. Okay, we don't know if the internet provider will be from the ship or sometimes from the port terminal, which is very important to know that, okay? Because we have been already facing some experience. Assistant has assistant in the survey, not participating in the survey, invited by the classification society, and in the middle of the of the survey, we have to suspend due to the telephone they was using on board, finish the battery, okay? Then second, what is the future of the marine survey activity? Of course, technology. I divide in 2 points, in 4 points also. Technologies to be adapted to the different situations. The survey looks to be remotely in the future due to reduction of costs and fees and accidents. Important evidence is recorded to future discussion or claims, and the port state control remarks and detention after statutory removal. I will explain point by point. Okay, technology to be adapted to the different situations. The marine survey activity, for me, of course, will continue. The remote survey will not damage or will not make any kind of regret of the business for the surveyors. We are convinced that the marine technology came to stay, but the service providers have to improve them services and equipment to permit do surveys remotely in any place or circumstances. Number 2, the survey looks to be remotely in the future due to reduction. Of course, probably the introduction of remote surveys will reduce cost to the ship owners around 40% of the actual value, avoiding, for example, air tickets, hotel, local transport, visa, entry pass fees, harbor boat service or lunch, if the vessel is in an anchorage, and other collateral consequences as we can avoid, for example, port strike, time-saving factor, which is very important, human accidents, very important also, political and public health situations. The ship owner will see in these technologies, I'm talking on the view of the ship owner, will see on this technology a good way to invest in a better connectivity on board, personal training, some devices and tools, has drones or professional cameras. I'm talking about smart vessels also, and those equipment should be at the same time approved by class. The future looks very interesting regarding the control over the ship navigation, specifically in case of damage or accident or collision happen on board. The marine technology allows the class to receive live and directly the first images and voice explanation about what happened, and consequently, the time of response will be decreased. Okay, the service provider, I mean the dry dock or shore-based maintenance or service provider will send the quotation immediately because they have all the information given by this technology. Important evidence is recorded for the future discussion or claims to avoid misunderstanding with the ship owners and port authorities within any damage occur before the inspection. Sometimes happen that when you have experience of that, we make the inspection on board and then after the inspection they say no, something happened in the hold. But with this technology we will be sure that this situation happened after the inspection, not before. Okay. Port state control remarks and detention. This is the point number 4. This is very important. The statistic of port state control remarks and detentions opened by our vessels, I'm talking about the Panama flag vessels, after the remote survey performed by a recognized organization or classification society, will help the flag state to measure the effectiveness of those kind of survey and to consider future regulation and modification of our legal instruments and regulations, of course, also the way of seeing the application of this technology to conduct annual and other surveys on board our fleet. I mean, is the port state control become like our external auditor in those specific case of the statutory certificate, which is in this moment not allowed by Panama. I will explain why. He become okay, our external auditor, and we will see in the next future what is the results of those remote survey made by the class. Okay. The last point is the international maritime provisions, the point number third. Of course, IMO should produce some specific legislation regarding the legal frame and the technology used by the maritime survey. The IMO will study the standard for those remote surveys and minimum type of equipment involved, which are already accepted by Panama administration, because we already accepted the remote survey, but in some condition. I will explain. It's important to remember that visiting physically the ship, okay, when the surveyor go on board physically, okay, generates a lot of evidence. The same level and quantity of evidence should be considered by the organization to develop the regulatory body in this matter. Part of the backup given by the flag states regarding the results of the annual safety inspection. The annual safety inspection, as you know, is our internal audit made by the flag. And port state control inspection also will be important to develop and study any improvement in the IMO regulations. That means we have to wait a little bit for the experience in order to collect the data of the results of those port state control inspections after their remote survey. Then, the remote statutory survey should be pre-authorized by Panama. We have the Merchant Marine Circular 382, okay? We will speak only 3 points very fast. The point 3.2, point 4.1, and 5.2, which is the first one. The 3.2 is the definition. What does the remote inspection techniques means? The method to conduct remote surveys according to the IRClass, because we consider the IRClass Regulation 42 from 1996, which state that includes the use of divers, unmanned robots, remote operates vehicles, climbers, drones, other means acceptable for the society. However, other means used by recognized organization to conduct remote survey should be accepted by the flag, the Panama flag. Application: remote surveys may be used as an alternative to survey on site, employing remote inspection techniques by the crew or ship designated person to provide the survey results necessary to the recognized organization appointed surveyor for the correspondent evaluation. Therefore, the survey can be carried out wherever the ship is located and in order to ensure compliance with applicable international regulations. Having considered the technological capabilities and procedure developed by the recognized organization to execute remote surveys, will authorize to carry out the following surveys. We, in this Merchant Marine Circular 382, we already authorize some specific remote surveys, but only in four cases. ISM, ISPS, and MLC, rectification of non-conformities, statutory rectification of deficiency, occasional underwater survey, and radio surveys, which have been attended by a radio technician. Remote survey not listed above, not listed in these four items, should be authorized case by case by Panama. Then we have the Merchant Marine Notice 007, but this is in the case of COVID, okay? Only in the case of COVID, is applicable the Merchant Marine Notice 007, which state that the recognized organization shall ensure that all statutory certificates remain valid using remote surveys. Then I listed some links where you can see those regulations we have for the COVID situation and also for the normal situation. And anytime we will be at your disposal in order to take care of those questions that you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Octavio, for your precious and important presentation. I would like just to ask all the participants, please, if you have any question for our panelists, just save them for the end of the presentations. We will have Q&A for around 10 to 15 minutes. Our second speaker in today's webinar is Mr. Rajiv Pratap Rao, Regional Manager, Middle East, Africa and EU, IRClass. Mr. Rajiv is a marine engineer by profession. He graduated from Marine Engineering Research Institute, Kolkata, India. He served on merchant ships for 13 years before joining IRClass in 2005. He has been a key driver of the organization's growth in Middle East and Africa and has a significant experience in surveys and classification related matters. Mr. Rajiv's presentation will be about future role of class partnering with the industry. Mr. Rajiv.
Thanks, Mr. Loy, and thanks to Robban, Assafina magazine for having me here to express my views and bringing all of us together for this webinar. So, hello everyone, very good afternoon to all of you. Hope you all are doing well and staying safe. One needs to be very careful and cautious because various governments are lifting their restrictions on travel, and you need to be really very careful and cautious at this point of time. Before I start my presentation, on behalf of Indian Register of Shipping, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to all, one and all from maritime sector who contributed in keeping the global trade going and the supply chain intact. I salute all the seafarers who showed a tremendous perseverance. They kept the show going and none of the vessels stopped and the discharge of cargo never stopped. It is because of all from the marine faculty. So as you know, COVID-19 situation, pandemic forced all the streams of life, whether at home or in your office, to change your stance, and IRS is not an exception. We also adopted some new techniques. We also adopted some new procedures to handle the situation. My topic of my presentation today is future role of classification society, the partnership with the industry. Yeah, so briefly about Indian Register of Shipping, the organization was formed in 1975. So having an experience of 4 decades, we got IX associate membership in 1991, the full membership in 2010, EU recognition in 2016, and the Indian Register of Shipping is ranked top 10 by Lloyd list. So as you can see, the organization is quite young and we are continuously growing. We are having an authorization from almost 46 flag states and we are having 46 offices worldwide. Can you, how to scroll it, Lloyd? Yeah, so these are our business verticals: marine, offshore, industrial, management systems and certification, ISO certifications. IRClass Academy, we have got a state-of-art academy in Bombay, which imparts training to our surveyors as well as to the industries, like superintendent's training, DPA training, ISM, ISPS, and all sort of trainings we are providing to the industry. IRClass has got a defense division also, which looks after the defense needs. We are very actively involved in the defense project with Indian government, Indian Navy, and IRS has been very instrumental in developing naval rules for Indian Navy. Yeah, so coming to the primary role of classification society, as you all are aware, ship classification remains the core of our activity. Then we carry out statutory certifications on behalf of flag administration. And as a classification society, we need to undertake research and development to have different rules that becomes a tool for our surveyors, and that becomes the knowledge for the shipping industry to comply with. Then we are providing assistance to various maritime industry and regulatory bodies for attending meetings like Maritime Safety Committee meeting, Maritime Pollution Prevention, MEPC and MSC meetings. So the role of the class is changing every day, because what class role used to be there 10 years back, that is not there now. The role of the classification society has changed considerably. While enhancing safety of life and protection of environment remains at our core, today we are seen as a facilitator rather than a regulator. Within the larger realm of safety and compliance, we are helping the industry to comply with the various regulations. So to catch up with all these new requirements, new regulations, the role requires class to innovate and upscale its resources. We have to catch up with the technology, we have to catch up with the time. What does industry expect from class? Because there are some expectations from the industry. The industry expects that class should provide guidelines in dealing with new subjects and new regulations, because they need the interpretation by the class and they need a guidance from the classification society for the implementation part. Then class society needs to have training and seminars to bring awareness in all the stakeholders. As I said earlier, the rules and procedure need to be developed as per the IX and IMO changing rules and regulations. Then we have to enhance our technology to carry out condition-based survey and remote surveys, which has become essence of life today. And then the data analytics and use of data in determining future course of action. So that plays a very important role. So future role of class, solutions and innovations. So these are the class can extend support to the industry in approval of new technology. Like suppose the low sulfur fuel has become mandatory from 1st January 2020. So accordingly, the various equipments need to undergo changes, and class society is playing a very important role in giving the approval and validating those technologies. Then from orthodox physical survey, we are changing over to risk-based inspection and new survey techniques. The real-time data are being analyzed, and we are analyzing how effective are the surveys, condition-based survey or remote surveys, how effective they are. That's a very important aspect, because until unless you analyze the future development and future progress will not be visible. Then we are into the certification of new age and cyber safe ships. As you must have heard, Mr. Octavio, we are using the technology, we are using the telecommunication, we are using the internet facilities. So the ships now need to be cyber safe, and it should be very resilient against any cyber attacks or any cyber fraudulent. So these are the explanation. Just now I have explained, so we can go to the next slide. Okay, this is the most talked about thing at the moment, remote survey techniques. Like other classification society, like other inspection bodies, IRS has also adopted this technique because COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the use of remote surveys. Now, when the travel restrictions are there, no one can attend the vessel, no one can travel. This has become the only tool to keep the certificates validated, to keep the global supply chain intact. Of course, the classification society received very able supports from all the flag administrations by means of their communication, by means of the circulars released by them. But as a classification society, we very proactively, we developed a procedure, the uniform procedure to carry out remote surveys. The advantage of this procedure is there is a uniformity all over the world. Wherever you go, whichever part you are offering the vessel for survey, the requirements remain the same. So the moment we receive a request for remote survey, we are following the procedure. We communicate to the owner managers with the requirements, and so they are also very comfortable. They also know what is the expectation by the classification society. So this is remote survey process. The flag concurrence we are taking for all statutory surveys, or wherever we need some advice from flag, we are communicating with them. We are taking their point of view, apart from the circulars which they are releasing time to time. Remote surveys are done on self-checks undertaken by the ship staff. So whatever survey checklist we are using as a surveyor, we are extending it to the vessel and asking chief engineer and master to check each and every item. And the critical areas, we are asking them to have photographs, videos, and live streaming, so that the actual condition of the vessel can be accessed. And this is the means we are accepting remote survey. So far we have been doing only for the occasional survey, for extension of surveys, but slowly as the experience goes, and after analyzing our conduct of survey, we may think of extending it to the surveys like docking survey, where CCTV is there, where you can view the CCTV footage. So those, on the basis of the experience and analysis, we may extend our scope to credit various surveys also. But at the moment we are into only the occasional survey and extension of certificates within the convention and beyond the convention, of course with the concurrence from the flag administration. Okay, so as you all are aware, this COVID-19 is going to stay for some time. And matter of fact, one needs to adopt a policy. What happens after COVID-19? So we are developing a tool that even after COVID-19 also, just to minimize the travel of the surveyor and the cost of the owner, we may, based on the experience gained by us, we may extend our surveys to credit annual survey, docking survey, and various other surveys. So for that purpose, we are developing the infrastructure. That means we are having the dedicated remote survey control room, which is equipped with the TV screen and the audio system. And similarly, we are training our surveyors to use of for the use of monitors, webcams, and audio equipment. Of course, we need a support from the industry because you know that internet connectivity plays a very vital role for remote surveys, and it all depends how good is the connectivity. Because many a times we have seen when you go for live streaming, the footage is not so clear and it is not continuous. So it is very, very important to have good internet connectivity, and the owners need to also provide the infrastructure to facilitate remote surveys. And then IRS digitalization and new initiatives, we are issuing all electronic certificates. The drawings and plans are submitted, reviewed, approved, retrieved, all electronically through our website. We are archiving all the plans, all the manuals, all the records electronically. Survey requests are being made through website and mobile application. We are into vessel performance analysis and energy efficiency analysis, cyber security, and we are working for autonomous ships. The IRClass website, you can visit to our website www.irclass.org. It has got many information. Please do visit to our website and give us the feedback. The drawings are all submitted through this website. Even the survey requests are done. Service supplier approval requests are made through this website. We are having a mobile application which can be downloaded from Google Play Store and Apple Store, which has the features of survey request form, the list of types and works approvals, upcoming regulations. You can search any ship. We are having technical circulars also, our rules and notification alerts, like new rules and regulations coming into force, you will keep getting the notification. So the conclusion is the role of classification society has changed from a regulator to a facilitator. In future, it will further evolve as a partner to the industry. We are geared up to provide value-added services to our clients, and IRClass is partner in maritime risk management. Thank you very much for your presence hearing, and all the very best.
Thank you, Mr. Rajiv, for this precious presentation and fruitful one. Now we will move to our third speaker, Engineer Tansal Kulko, Marine Operation Manager, Bureau Veritas, Dubai. Tansal started his career in Marmara Shipyard, Turkey, and held positions as field engineer and as project manager from 1990 to 1996. He joined Bureau Veritas in 1996 as a marine surveyor in Turkey, and from 2001 to 2005 worked as marine surveyor and ISM and ISPS auditor in Bureau Veritas, UAE. Since 2005, he held the position as Ships in Service Operation Manager for UAE. Tansal Kulko holds Naval Architect and Marine Engineer degree from Istanbul Technical University. He was appointed as Marine Operation Manager for UAE on 1st March 2020. Mr. Tansal's presentation will be about Bureau Veritas Digital Remote Surveys. Mr. Tansal, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaban. Thank you very much to Robban Assafina also giving us this opportunity to connect with the network, to meet you all, to present what we are doing. I hope my voice is clear.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much again. Good afternoon, everyone. I will try to give you a short outlook what Bureau Veritas, what we are doing, what we did, what we are doing, and what we will do in near future. I would say we call strange times. I should say that since early beginning of COVID-19 pandemic, flag administrations, port state controls, and other industry leaders have adopted guidelines for dealing with this unknown, novel circumstances in a pragmatic and harmonized manner. In the same way, International Association of Classification Societies, IRClass, received many requests from interested parties seeking guidance on how its members intend to respond to the current and forthcoming challenges posed by, again, this pandemic. Bureau Veritas, of course, as an IRClass member, understand and share the shipping industry's stakeholders' concerns regarding the potential impact of COVID-19 on international shipping, both in the short and long term. We have been working in coordination with flag states for operational decisions on measures to maintain the validity of classification and statutory certifications, of course, either in a coordinated fashion or on a case-by-case basis to identify and assess measures that can be implemented to facilitate shipping business continuity. Therefore, it's crucially important that the flow of commerce by sea should not be unnecessarily disrupted. At the same time, needless to say that safety of life at sea and protection of the marine environment must also remain paramount. Let's start with the HSE. We can't emphasize enough, we can't say enough. Safety is our absolute priority. We want all our surveyors and crew members on board the ships to go back safe to their families. The health of our teams, families, and our clients is our top priority. Bureau Veritas have implemented a coordinated approach at global and local levels in every level. Therefore, we developed a clear guidance of our people, prioritizing health, safety, and welfare, both again globally and locally. And we kindly ask all industry to ensure that our surveyors are provided with a safe work environment. When we are doing our business in the shipyards and the ships, of course, we kindly ask your cooperation. Make it sure that everybody goes home back safely. Of course, the HSE measures in place include strict adherence to the applicable international and local instructions guidelines, BV group and HSE procedures, and of course, site security, access controls, and site health and safety measures. With 180 offices around the world and 19 local plan approval offices and 6 marine operational centers, we are trying our best to provide the business continuity. Measures and specific procedures, for this reason, measures and specific procedures have been established and implemented to ensure the continuity of our services and the shipping industry business continuity by return, to minimize the chance of any disruption to ships' operation. Whenever surveys are not possible, short-term certificate extensions will also be available, mostly on a case-by-case basis, and further to flag state authorization for statutory certificates. As mentioned by my colleagues, two distinguished presenters before, flag authorization is essential here. many flag states have accepted a systematic 3 months extensions for statutory certificates expiring between March and May 2020. And this is being continuously monitored and reviewed. Whenever physical surveys are not possible due to known reasons, our remote survey capability may be applicable, which is again subject to flag authorization for the statutory matters. So far, most of the remote surveys carried out for the time being were related to and are being related to postponement of condition of glass, general condition surveys for postponement of annual surveys or spatial surveys, renewal surveys, periodical surveys, occasional surveys for postponement of tail shaft surveys, for instance. Damage surveys we can do until some certain extent by remote surveys. Continuous survey machinery items, dealing with them or postponing them. Underwater surveys, and these things can be extended to other areas as well. Yeah. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. And of course, speaking with remote surveys, these surveys are applicable also for the ISM, ISPS, and MLC audits, extensions to some certain extent. We're doing that. And of course, to cover all, I must mention that new building surveys also, up to some extent, could be done via remote survey. For the new building surveys, of course, surveys at yards should be done considering the HSE conditions are met in pooling. Participation of BV surveyors in sea trials may be allowed in accordance with required HSE requirements as well. These requirements must be established before a sea trial happens and to be maintained during the sea trials. Postponement surveys, of course, can be done for boiler surveys. 3 months extensions as a standard under the strict IMO and IACS rules can be granted. And further 3 months possible extensions are possible with the force majeure cases, proving the force majeure cases. We mentioned about continuous survey machinery items and some certain extent, again, life-saving and firefighting appliances, systems can be postponed or remotely surveyed. Yeah. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Thank you. Yes. To sum up the first part of my presentation until now, I must mention again the health and safety of the people, clients, PV people, crew on board, and all stakeholders is paramount. On the other hand, the global continuation of BV surveys during this pandemic period is vital to support shipping industry and business without compromising safety. And in the second part of my presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about, I would like to give a quick look at recent developments with regards to digitalization or digital transformation. Not now, but last 1 year, the popular word digitalization or digital transformation, all you know, everywhere, in every segment, in every industry. Now, today, Bureau Veritas, we are on track to take the next step in digital transformation, what we call digital classification, because we believe that this is the future of classification. As a first example, I would like to talk a little bit about optimum survey planning. We introduced to the shipping industry late 2019. As you know, traditionally, the current system of surveys for ships in service is planned and prescriptive. So ships traditionally come for surveys in set days, and surveyors run through a list of survey items, which is same for whole life of ship. With optimum survey planning, OSP, we are capitalizing the data gathering process to feed our tools, softwares, be able to schedule predictive and optimized inspections and surveys. So how this is working? We ask 3 simple questions. First, does the ship any expected surveys or audits in near future? We know the answer to this question. Through our systems, softwares, we know that what survey is coming in next month. The second question is that in which port in near future the ship is expected. We are in cooperation with several industry players through our partnerships to get the data through AS data partners. Or simply, of course, clients can give us this information upfront. And then third information, are there any qualified and available surveyor in this expected port? And then after these 2 questions, I must say that our little magic box is working, making optimization and coming out with an outcome proposition to owners, telling them that your ship is going to blah, blah port, and that day, and annual surveys are due, and we have Mr. A available on that day. And it's just up to the superintendent, click the button and confirm the surveyor. This system is implemented since end of 2019, and we see, I would say, a successful implementation through the major companies, and they are preferring this system because it's simple for them. If I have a look to the next slide, yes, by doing this OSP, actually, we are moving from predicted survey schedule to the optimized survey schemes. Whenever needed, and focusing on the items matters where it's really necessary. And another topic, of course, next slide, please. Next one. Remote surveys. We are looking to the remote surveys from the Bureau Veritas, one before, yeah, Bureau Veritas point of view. We are grouping them in the 3 categories: offline surveys, partly online surveys, and fully online surveys. And offline surveys is pretty simple, and partly online surveys is also the same way, working same way. Just submittal of the videos, objective evidences, documentation, reports, records via email or through any software environment is enough for us. We are deleting recommendations as much as possible, and after strict evaluation of our technical experts, and then or postponing. When it comes to fully online survey, next slide, please. Yes. Fully online survey, of course, as my colleagues mentioned also before, through a video tool on board the ship. However, of course, as we mentioned before, we must analyze these requests very well in advance. We have to understand that is the full online survey is necessary, or can we do some of them through documentation? If we decide, then our head office is deciding which survey scheme will be applicable. If we decide about the remote survey, and of course, we are approaching the flag administrations for their consent, for their agreement. And then we appoint a surveyor. The remote survey is being carried on board. As soon as the survey finishes, we update our system. Then in a given time period, the BV survey and report has been issued. And then this report is being made available to all industry players, starting from the ship owners to the flag administrations, of course. And again, as I mentioned, that it's pretty simple. Can we have a look at the next slide, please? Yeah. It may sound like a complicated, however, through a video conference tool, we're just sending one SMS to the person on board the ship, master or chief engineer or superintendent. And all he needs to do is to click this SMS, and by doing that, the video tool is opening that, and then we control it. It's pretty much simple. No license is needed, no application is needed, no specific equipment is needed. Again, it's mentioned before, all we need is a little bit strong internet connection, of course. Yes. And speaking with the future, by doing those digitalization, we are slightly moving, or however, not abandoning the present service. However, we are moving to from the on-site verification to the remote verification. I would say here we are a little bit. I think marine industry is in the way, following the big brothers such as the aviation industry and offshore industry, of course, where these things are already implemented long years satisfactorily. Next slide, please. And of course, another popular subject is moving from surveyorage to the remote inspection techniques, wherever is possible, wherever is reliable, wherever is trustable. And one final word about that again, next slide. To include AI. Moving from the typical conservative finding survey system, we are moving to inclusion of artificial intelligence in every area. Last overview about this remote survey, traditional inspection techniques, scaffoldings, rope accesses, raft surveys in the tanks, remote inspection techniques. Now we're talking about drones, drone operators. Typically UTMs carried by hands, UTM technicians. We are working on that now for the several different options, crawlers, drones, of course, including drones in the technique, taking the UTMs. And diving companies moving from the typical diver to ROVs. They are all in the table now. All these options are open. And we have opened several remote survey centers, and in Rotterdam, Piraeus, and I'm pleased to inform everyone once again that by June we have opened remote survey center Dubai as well. Finally, a few words about e-certificates. Bureau Veritas is issuing electronic e-certificates starting from 2018. This is in conformity with the IMO guidelines, Circular 39, guidelines for the use of electronic certificates. These certificates are being issued with the request from ship owner or ship management in replacement of paper certificates. I must mention about that. After both flag administrations and ship managers' agreements. Once we issue the certificates, we are sending them to the recipients, agreed with the ship manager, and we uploaded them into our website and mobile applications and archive. Needless to say that switching to e-certificates will reduce time and cost for issuance of the certificates. All interested parties will have real-time access to the certificates. It will facilitate certificate management. You can combine it with the other certificates, from ISO certificates up to writing certificates. Avoid loss of damage certificates. Verify authenticity and validity. It will be very easy through a small application. And definitely, it will help prevention of fraud. We are trying to stay connected with all interested parties, and we kindly ask you to stay connected with us through our website and mobile applications, of course. And thank you very much. Please click the button and subscribe our newsletters, and down you will see our offshore newly developed website. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend, again for this presentation. Basically now discussions will focus on the future of maritime drones, and for that we are happy to welcome Mr. Robert Garbett, Chief Executive, Drone Major Group, London, UK. Robert is founder of Drone Major Group Limited, the world's first global drone consultancy dedicated to advising companies and organizations on what can be achieved through the use of autonomous and remotely controlled systems in their operation across all environments, surface, underwater, air, and space. Where to acquire the technology and how to integrate it safely and effectively into their operations. He is also founder of the UK Drone Delivery Group, an industry initiative to provide guidance on the steps required to enable the accelerated commercialization of the UK drone industry. Its members include senior representatives of the aviation industry and various authorities, including Boeing, Thales, Microsoft, Department for Transport, and the Civil Aviation Authority. Robert is chairman of the British Standards Institution, BSI committee, responsible for the development of drone standards in the UK, and leads the International Standards Organization Working Group, developing the standards for the operation of unmanned air systems, UAS, both passengers and non-passenger carrier. He is the only authority to be advising on standards in Britain, Europe, and worldwide, a leading consultant within the global drone industry and an advocate on the potential of drone technology to transform business and economies. Robert Garbett is an ex-military entrepreneur who ended his military career in 2007 as the head of airworthiness for the Defense Logistics Organization, responsible for airworthiness for all aircraft platforms across all services, Army, Navy, and Air Force. With his CAA airworthiness accreditation, he embarked on a career in software development and cybersecurity, then focusing on the fast growth drone industry. Please, Mr. Robert.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me. I hope that you can hear me okay.
Yeah, you sound perfect.
Apologies, I'm actually in the south of France, so you're on speaker in a car, but never mind. Okay, so thank you very much for that introduction. That was I couldn't have done it better myself. So as we only have 10 minutes to cover this topic, and it is very large, we'll get on. Could I ask you to go to the next slide, please? Could you go to that? Perfect. So as you said, the drone industry is a very fast-moving, very turbulent environment. This presentation is really just scratching the surface, but there's a really one key point that I want to make right the way throughout, which I'll summarize at the end. What I'm going to cover is one important topic, which is what is a drone. Cover some case studies around the use of drones in maritime. Going to give you a little taste of some of the latest technology and some of the future considerations. Could I ask you to go to the next slide, please? Okay, could you click again, please? Okay, so the important thing to recognize is that whilst you all might have in your mind, when you hear the term drone, a small spider-shaped flying object, the truth couldn't be further from that. So the ISO definition, the International Standards Organization definition is there. It's any unmanned system that is autonomously or remotely controlled, which means it includes driverless ground vehicles, driverless cars, ships, submarines, aircraft, spacecraft, humanoid robots, and anything in between. Okay, so if you just click it once more, please. And that's why we use the acronym Surface, Underwater, Air and Space. And I believe that we are the only organization in the world able to advise on the application of drone technology across all of these environments. So when I give this presentation today, please bear in mind that I'm looking way wider than just small air vehicles. Next slide, please. Okay. And again, please. So firstly, we'll just look at some case studies. So looking at underwater inspection, I think this is a well-known application. The cleaning of vessels under the water, as I'm sure you're all aware, is absolutely critical, because a 10% buildup of fouling on the hull of a ship will create something like a 40% increase in the fuel required to drive it. So absolutely key. And the technology in this area is moving forward at a phenomenal pace, really due to industry's demand. Also underwater inspections. We, unfortunately, in the maritime industry, we kill a number of people every year by sending them over the side of ships to inspect or to repair vessels in the water. I think the days of that are coming to an end, and certainly we're working on a number of projects in South Africa where we're looking at, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of your slide, this is a remotely controlled, half humanoid, half ROV piece of technology that can be used for limited maintenance, and I'll show you some more technology in a little bit. And of course, the ability for remotely controlled systems not only to maintain but to repair is now, it's with us today. So this technology exists, and these applications are, as you can imagine, very, very important. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of actually inspecting underwater, it's not just necessarily about the vehicle. What's also very, very important is the sensor technology that you carry on your vehicle. And the advancements in sensor technologies is amazing. In fact, we were looking up here in the UK for the oil and gas industry at a piece of equipment that can, for the first time ever, detect rust even underwater. And it utilizes a multi-layer of sensors to do that. So the ability to actually remotely sensor and detect and repair utilizing advanced compounds injected into cracks or to cover wear on ships, it is again with us now. Obviously, I've already covered cleaning. Subsea surveying is very, very important. We're going to come on to that in a little bit at the moment. But what's also very, very interesting, and an area that's, I think, more important than anyone understands, is the ability to extract when you're carrying out these operations. So whether you're cleaning the underside of a hull, or whether you're in fact cleaning a hold on a ship, or inspecting it, or surveying it, or looking at an entire vessel to see where the damage is, whether that be for insurance purposes or whether that be for just general maintenance, and we work with a number of shipping organizations in the world to assist them in how to do that. These operations, which in the past have been carried out by humans, are very dangerous. They are time consuming. They require a certain level of skills, so they become very, very expensive. As soon as you start looking at the wider range of autonomous and remotely controlled systems to carry out these these tasks, it becomes a lot easier. But what's more important is once you've got the data that you've extracted from that, how accurately can you analyze it? How can you build up patterns? Can you develop a maintenance pattern by looking at, failure rates over time? So that's really, really important. And one of the key points that I want to bring out here is that a single autonomous system, such as a small flying drone on its own, is of limited use. So certainly in the maritime industry, but also in other industries, there's a move towards hybridization. And I don't mean hybridization in terms of utilizing different engine types. I'm talking about vehicles that can operate across environments, and that's the surface, underwater, air and space. So in this instance, if you look at the image at the top there, you'll see a surface maritime autonomous system, which is called WAM-V, which operates an autonomous air system, which mates and plants with that either on a tether or remote or free flying, and it also operates an ROV. So that's a single 3-environment system, a hybrid drone system, where you can get far more utility. You can inspect underneath the water of a vessel, above the shore, above the line, over the top. This is a single vehicle that you could actually throw over the side of the ship to carry out regular, in fact, far more regular inspections than you have done in the past. So this technology, when hybridized, gives you what's called force multiplication, which is much more economical than anything you'd have done before, or in fact, anything that's being done now with single remotely piloted air systems, which have a very limited application in my view. Next slide, please. Okay, a little bit of a taste. This is only a 10-minute presentation, so I have to whip through. I do apologize. A little bit of a taste of the latest technologies just to show you what's on the market. Could you just click on the next slide, please? So I wanted to hone in on the WAM-V vehicle. So this is a multi-configurable autonomous vessel, almost impossible to tip this thing over, and you can get it as small as 6 foot or as big as 56 foot. You can launch all sorts of vessels and all sorts of technology from this platform. As you can see, it's very configurable. This particular one has an ROV which has been deployed and an air vehicle that's actually in the air, which is out of shot of this particular vehicle. So there are a number of vessels like this, a number of vehicles like this, which can operate air, surface, and underwater, and they're very, very useful for all sorts of applications, such as low-level surveying under the water, inspection, maintenance, as well as environmental monitoring, which is also, of course, quite important. Next slide, please. Have you gone backwards or forwards? Oh no, okay. So yeah, this is what's called a snake configuration. There are, of course, many vehicles that operate in this configuration. The great thing about this is that it's got super maneuverability. It can go very deep if necessary, and the front end, you can have a number of items linked onto that. So not only can it be used for surveying and inspections, you can also use it for limited maintenance or operations under the water. So if you have a certain amount of things that need to be done underneath the vessel, or if you're surveying offshore assets and you need to make a number of adjustments, this vehicle can do that for you. Very, very powerful. Next slide, please. If you're looking at sort of more free-flowing surveying of offshore sites or pipelines, or you're looking for environmental monitoring, systems such as this, which are sort of obviously fish-shaped, this one's a shark, are very, very powerful. This is sort of a mid-range offshore survey and inspection, and of course it's used in environmental as well. Next slide, please. This item is a very deep, or a deep ROV, which again has advanced sensor technology, multi-layered sensor technology, which we'll come on to in a minute. But enables you to go a lot deeper. Again, it's offshore, but it's just on a deeper shelf. Next slide, please. And if you really want to go deep, of course, you could use the Echo Voyager, but if you've got the budget for it. But this is sort of super, super deep, long-term surveying, as well as obviously military applications. Next slide, please. Okay, so more important, I think, almost than the platform is the payload technology. And again, this is such a big topic. I can only really scratch the surface. So if I just touch the next slide, please. The first one is, of course, laser. There are a number of laser applications, laser 3D, 4D applications, which can, systems which can extract massive amounts of data very, very accurately, either from underneath your vessel or from the sea floor. If you're inspecting the plate inspections or environmental inspections. Next slide, please. Yes, and sort of and advanced multi-layered, just give me 1 second, acoustic technology, which gives you a wider breadth of applications of detection. It can be quite accurate if it's done correctly, but not necessarily from the surface. Best done from the surface on low level stuff. But if you're doing this deep, it becomes a bit of a problem. Next slide, please. And your full spectrum stuff, which is where you really get very high resolution, deep surveying stuff. And of course, all of this technology can be used on vessels as well as on the landscape. And the final slide, please. So the main points here really are that you really need to combine your technology. There is no one technology, there is no one off-the-shelf solution. One of the things that we specialize in is advising organizations in how to combine technology, how to combine layers of sensory, layers of data, layers of platforms such as this. So think air, think satellite data. There's a hell of a lot you can do with that in terms of increasing the accuracy of your positioning. Think surface drones, okay? So carry out sensor tests from that, and certainly if you're looking at shipping above the waterline and below the waterline, hybridized systems are very good. Subsea drones, of course, they're becoming far more advanced than they used to be. It's an industry that was quite suppressed by low prices coming out of the oil industry, but now we've broken out from that. So there's a lot of innovation going on with subsea drones. Think data analytics. This is the piece that most people get wrong. They go out and they buy something off the shelf, they try to use it, and they're probably getting 10% of the ability that they could have from it, because they're not thinking long term, they're not thinking analytics, they're not thinking modeling. You can make your organization far more effective. You can actually preempt maintenance if you do this right by gathering enough evidence over time. And think multimodal or hybrid. If you hybridize your systems, you get that force multiplier, you get far more for your money, and you get far more capability. Next slide, please. Okay, I think that was probably just a tad over 10 minutes. I'm sorry for racing through, but it is a very, very large topic. My details are on the slide there if anyone has any questions, and I'll certainly hang around till the end if anyone has any specific questions on my presentation. Thank you very much. I hope that was useful.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. We appreciate your time and for this fruitful presentation. Now with our last but not least speaker, Mr. Bob Dahlstrom, CEO of Appelix, Aerial Robotics System for the Built Environment USA. Bob, he will focus in his presentation on automated contact-based robotic hull and coating thickness measurement of maritime assets in dry dock. Robert is the founder and CEO of Appelix, which provides software-driven aerial robotics platforms to paint, coat, clean, and test. A serial entrepreneur, Bob is passionate about designing and creating software-controlled robotic systems that keep people out of harm's way and save lives. Bob is a frequent presenter on the use of robotic system for non-destructive testing, NDT, inspection, NDY, and evaluation, NDE, and has presented at numerous conferences. He is authoring a chapter on robotic NDE inspection in an upcoming book titled Handbook of NDE 4.0. Mr. Dahlstrom is also active with various standards bodies for robotic inspections. Bob, please.
Thank you, Louis, and thank you, Assafina Magazine, for the opportunity to speak today. So yeah, let's go ahead to the third slide and get started there. So ship surveyors and corrosion engineers complete non-destructive examinations at height as a method of determining the condition of maritime assets, such as ships' hulls. To do this at elevation in a dry dock, currently a ship surveyor or corrosion engineer may need to utilize a lift, scaffolding, ladders, ropework, or inspection trucks with elevated baskets. The ship surveyor or corrosion engineer will often hold a handheld digital testing device to the asset to take that non-destructive testing measurement. That typically is an ultrasonic thickness measurement, or UTM. So the non-destructive testing inspection programs can dramatically increase safety and integrity of assets. Access requirements in performing these inspections in elevation often introduce risk. Non-destructive testing inspection sites require access and personal fall protection equipment, such as a safety harness or lanyard. Working at height is dangerous due to possibility of falls, as well as time-consuming due to access. In certain instances, it may also require taking an asset out of service, or keeping it out of service, or keeping it in dry dock for a longer period of time. Next slide. So robotic inspection and measurement systems hold a great potential to perform jobs safer, better, and faster than completing the same task with people. Of specific interest in dry docks and for maritime and ships are aerial robotic systems for contact-based measurement and inspections, because they're quick, agile, highly extensible, and safer than putting workers at height. So this allows for contact-based inspection, which is different than the UTM that's done via video or other methods. Next slide. So robotic measurement technology with the highest potential for use in maritime assets are the ones that fly and physically make contact with the surface to gather data. Maritime assets are not box-shaped structures. Ships, for example, are complex geometries optimized to reduce drag coefficient. These flowing lines make robotic maintenance, inspection, and measurement difficult and challenging. One of the great things about aerial robotic systems is they can adapt. They can easily conform to non-linear surfaces, while other robotic or other techniques have a long adaptation curve. The patented robotic system discussed in this presentation flies up to a structure with a metal substrate, then under full autonomous software control, touches a non-destructive testing measurement probe, UT probe or DFT probe or to the target, and records the corrosion monitoring location measurement data compliant with ISO, ASTM, API, SSPC, or other standards. Next slide. So aerial robotic systems can dramatically reduce non-destructive testing and evaluation costs without reducing quality or capabilities. They allow delegation of the dirty, dull, and dangerous part of the job, the data collection, to the robotic system. Two most common components of this are ultrasonic thickness, UTT, or dry film thickness, DFT. Completing these measurements with robotic systems, aerial robotic systems, frees the ship surveyor, examiner, or corrosion engineer to focus on higher value duties, allowing work flexibility and enhanced productivity. Shipyards and dry docks demand continually enhanced productivity, cost reduction, fast throughput, and process optimization to stay competitive, and aerial robotic systems can enable just that. Next slide. So the electronic measurement devices have a long history of measuring ferrous substrates. According to Wikipedia, the first ultrasonic thickness gauge was made in 1967. These electronic devices, AKA magnetic film gauges, eddy current gauges, ultrasonic gauges, are used to non-destructively measure the thickness of a non-magnetic coating on a ferrous substrate, the thickness of a metal substrate, or other uses. According to a major manufacturer of these devices, quote, most coatings on steel and iron are measured this way. So non-destructive testing magnetic gauges work via magnetic or electromagnetic induction and measure the change in magnetic flux density at the surface as it nears the steel surface. By measuring the flux density, the thickness of the coating can be determined. NDT, eddy current electronic magnetic gauges use a constant pressure probe to provide thickness readings, frequently shown on a liquid crystal display on a handheld electronic unit that's held by the ship's surveyor or corrosion engineer. And these are very accurate devices with measurement tolerances of plus or minus 1%. So measuring a ship's hull for wall thickness or coating or paint thickness often occurs when a ship is in dry dock and multiple services are being performed. Wall thickness measurements or UT measurements use electromagnetic pulses or echoes that are sent through the metal and read by the device. For example, ultrasonic thickness gauges that measure wall thickness are mounted on software-controlled precision flight aerial robotic systems, and they're versatile devices ideal for measuring the effects of corrosion or erosion where access is limited to one side. The multiple echo through paint models measure the metal thickness of painted structures without having to remove the coating. This screenshot here is the onboard view of the robotic arm making contact with the structure. Embedded in the end of that robotic arm, in the end effector, is the magnetic probe tip to take the measurements, or the ultrasonic probe tip to take the hull measurements. So these systems are very dependable, reliable, have been in use for quite a long time. Mounting them on an aerial robotics system and connecting them to the onboard computer allows for the gathering of additional data that is not typically collected by the corrosion engineer in the field. Next slide. So for example, dry film thickness standards, such as those by the Society for Steel and Protective Coating, SSPC PA2, are frequently used to ensure that the coating or paint is properly applied or to estimate the remaining life of a coating job. The SSPC PA2 standard sets a number of places and required number of measurements that must be taken within the space. For example, 100 square feet or a 10 by 10 square meter area, you would select 3 areas for the first 1,000 square feet and 1 additional area for each 1,000 square feet. And then within each of these designated areas, 5 spot readings would be randomly collected. Next slide. And if you could go ahead and press play on the video. So what you're seeing here is that completing SSPC PA2 measurements on an entire ship's hull is time consuming. It would also, again, require a lift or scaffolding or other method of putting a worker at height, potentially fall reduction or risk mitigation strategies. It involves resource allocation issues, and it's not unusual to get only a few measurements per hour. An autonomous computer-controlled aero robotics system, for example, can take 100 measurements or more per hour while gathering additional data and information not currently collected. Next slide. So flying computers or drones next to structures is very difficult. Next slide on risk. And it's especially difficult if they're manually flown. So drones are not built to make physical contact with structures or fly close to structures. So what Pelix has done is automated their drones so that they're flown by the onboard computer, and the software is making 50 micro adjustments to the flight per second, something impossible for human pilots. So it's very critical that if you're using a drone inspection system to make physical contact with the structure for ultrasonic thickness or dry film thickness measurements, that you use a system that's has automated flight. And there are a lot of advantages for using a system like that. In addition to the increased productivity, health, safety, and environmental rules and practices can greatly benefit from an automated aerial robotic system that gathers these types of measurements. There are multiple entities involved in dry dock safety, from the facility owners and insurance companies to the local and national regulators, even standards and inspection organizations such as IMO and other bodies. Classification societies may carry out safety inspections in accordance with IMO regulations. And to a large extent, much of workers' safety in dry dock depends on safety practices and procedures, in addition to the class society, governmental, insurance, and other safety guidance and regulations. Next slide. So today, human inspection accessing ships in dry dock or elsewhere to measure the thickness of hull or the hull or the coating of the thickness. They're using a JLG or cherry picker or lift, scaffolding. This is risky. To access portion of a ship's hull at 20 to 30 meters in height creates a significant fall hazard. falls happen. And unfortunately, fall accidents are far too common. There's also issues with heat stroke, excessive sun, environmental exposure, and more. So removing these risks by engineering them out and away from the job site is an elegant solution. Why put people at risk of falls or injuries when you can have a robotic system doing the work? So in conclusion, autonomous unmanned aerial robotic systems used for inspection in the maritime industry, specifically contact-based ultrasonic thickness and dry film thickness measurements, have a great potential to perform jobs safer, better, and faster, completing the same task than if you were completing the same task with people. They can improve efficiency due to reduced inspection time. They can increase the efficacy by allowing for quicker reporting and faster decision-making. They also reduce the required spatial footprint currently required to collect the measurements by eliminating lifts or scaffolding. And they improve the inspection transparency as computers are better at gathering data than people. And finally, they are elegant safety solutions, potentially eliminating or at least reducing falls. And then last slide, there's a website here if you're interested in learning more information, as well as our email and contact and phone number. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Robert. We appreciate your time and your fruitful presentation. Now we would like to move to anybody that just to drop any question. I would appreciate just raising a hand. We will allow we'll allow him from to just to drop his question to any of the panelists.
I have one question, if it's possible, Lo.
Yeah, please.
I would like to make a question to Mr. Tansel from Bureau Veritas. Mr. Tansel, in Bureau Veritas, you allow for all the statutory certificates, the inspections can be made remotely, or you have some specific that can be made remotely, and after that, the surveyor have to go on board to finalize the inspection? This is my question.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Octavio. Thanks for the question. Presently, we are not doing any remote survey for any periodical surveys. Even load line annual survey or safety equipment survey, we are not doing anything for periodical or annual or renewal surveys. All our remote surveys presently for only occasion surveys and extension surveys. And yes, for all statutory certificates, these occasional surveys and extension surveys can be done remotely, but again, only occasional and extension surveys, nothing periodical, nothing annual, nothing renewal. I hope this will address your question.
Thank you, Mr. Tansel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tansel, and thank you. Yeah,
or some other details if you need.
For me, I am okay. I think the answer is okay.
Okay, however, just for the information presently, for the time being, we are working in pilot basis for the remote annual surveys also now. But nothing developed, nothing in the rules yet. It's just in pilot phases. This is only for the information.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tansel, for clarification, and thank you also for Mr. Octavio.
Thank you.
Just first of all, I would like to thank all our speakers for their precious time. I have one question, couple of questions, please. I have a question for Mr. Octavio. How do you evaluate the present regulations concerning remote surveys, and where's the IMO from that?
Okay, we have adopted the regulation 42 from IACS, which is the base of our Merchant Marine Circular 382. Of course, we are we are the person who have to give the feedback to the IMO, okay? And also the IMO will take some feedback from the port state controls. The port state controls will measure the effectiveness of those kind of inspections, and they will compare where the inspections made by the surveyor on board physically. Then, in this moment, we need to wait, okay? We need to wait. First of all, the COVID-19 situation is not helping to make those measurements. And then after this, when we come back to the normal situation, then we will see what is the results of those inspections. Of course, the IMO have to prepare also with together with the flag state and also the recognized organizations, the procedures and the main regulations in order to allow the statutory inspections. Why? Because already the Classification Society, as we know, they have made some remote survey, but only for class inspection, I mean, hull and machinery, okay? Not for statutory certificate.
Thank you, Mr. Octavio. I have a question also from the viewpoint of service providers, Mr. Robert and Mr. Bob. What about the calibration and error rate of drones? Is there a certification standard for them?
Yes, actually, there are certification standards to a certain degree, but we are behind the curve in all this technology. And I think if you look across the maritime autonomous shipping industry, sub-maritime systems, air systems, and certainly in hybrid, we are still in development. So at the moment, there is one international standard that's been released, which is ISO TC20SC16. It's 21384-3, which is a certification for UAS operators. And next year, you will probably see 21384-2 come out, which is the international standard for the certification of unmanned air systems of all types and sizes for manufacture. At the moment, and this is one of the areas that we look very, very closely at. One moment.
Okay, thank you.
There's very little that you can do. And so when you're purchasing or procuring this equipment, what you really must do is look very carefully at how it stacks up against emerging standards, of which sort of, there's very few people in the world that are able to do that.
And while there are very few standards for the hardware or the equipment itself, the standards for the jobs that they're performing are well established and have been around quite a while. However, there are new standards coming out for robotic inspections, at least from certain corrosion industries, such as NACE, NACE, and SSPC, due to the fact that robotic systems are able to collect a larger sample size at less cost and faster than doing them with humans. However, as with all standards, that will take time, but we are looking in the future that there will be specific robotic inspection standards for some of these various corrosion measurement types.
Thank you, Bob. Again, I would like to remind all the participants, if anyone has a question, just raise the hand and we'll allow just one to drop the question to any of the panelists. Yeah. Just 1 second. Yeah, just checking. Okay, I would like to drop a question for the viewpoint of the classes. What's the warranty of such remote service from insurance perspectives? Mr. Tansel, Mr. Rajiv.
It's a very interesting question, if I may say. However, unfortunately, we are not in a position to reply this question. I think the best insurance companies can reply, because in our surveys, there's no direct relation with the warranty. again, I leave this to insurers.
Mr. Rajiv, do you want to add anything about that? If any of the participants, please don't be shy, just raise the hand and we will allow for you just to adopt a question.
I can add something, not from the insurance perspective. However, more importantly, I would like to say that again, partly I think this will address to Mr. Octavio's question also. We are binded by the rules and we are heavily monitored, not by the flag states alone, however, by IACS itself and by IMO, and of course by European Maritime Safety Agency, EMS also. So in every decision we are taking, this includes the scope and extent of the remote surveys, we are keeping in mind that we have to answer the questions in future. And these questions can be next week, next month, next year, 3 years later from those parties. So it's very, very difficult, and I will say that it's impossible to go outlines of the rules and unified interpretations and the guidelines which is issued by, again, IMO, IACS, flag states, and EMSA. So strictly binding.
Thank you, Mr. Tansel. I just have one question for all the panelists to share their experience. From the viewpoint of the surveys, I'm sure they need training to be well qualified dealing with this new technology, drones and all this new technology. What's the importance of having a very well qualified surveyor?
I will say that although we are advertising, every industry player advertising the futuristic, innovative solutions, and we are eager to do that, to promote that. On the ground, we are being very careful. I don't want to say very conservative, but very careful before going with this remote surveys or other new developments in the classification. So yes, definitely we are sending our surveyors to heavy trainings for every aspect. This is you can say that from the new conventions such as ballast water management, implementation of the ballast water management convention to the remote surveys, using the softwares, drones nowadays, of course, different thickness measurement technologies, ROVs. Yes, we have several training modules for that, and surveyors must sit for this. Some of them physically, they have to attend. Some of them through the webinars. And I would like to add that these are not simple trainings. These are heavy trainings, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, which needs to be completed by the exams. So I believe all classification societies is doing that, and I don't see another way, Mr. Shaban.
Thank you, Mr. Tansel. Any of the speakers want to add on this viewpoint about the importance of training?
Yeah, I can add something to that. So essentially, at ISO, we've already developed. This is purely now unmanned air systems. So we have already developed training standard for operators of unmanned air systems. The problem with all of this is that, you know, what we need to now do is develop the industry-specific applicational training elements. We're still now looking at standards for training the trainer. So across the entire industry, and really across every aspect of it, standards, as with regulations, are lagging the field. And so whatever you are doing in this field to apply, and actually, you know, previous speaker was just saying, taking a very careful approach towards the application of autonomous systems. I totally agree with that approach. It does need expert advice. It does require careful thought. It is not just a case of going to buy something off the shelf and seeing if you can implement it within your organization. You know, aspects such as training, aspects such as the standards of the actual technical equipment, whether it's going to be compliant with international standards within 12 months, whether or not you can your staff can operate it, or whether you need external trained organizations. All of this affects how you get your return on your investment. So training is a very, very important factor. It's something that certainly ISO are looking at, the BSI are looking at, and at Europe. It's not so much of an issue there because it is being covered by ISO. But yes, you know, it's not there yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Can I comment? Can I add on that?
Yes, please, Mr. Khan.
Yes. Yes, these are excellent comments. To support this, I want to add also to my previous comments. When we are getting this training, when our head office is developing these trainings, of course, it's not only from our Paris office. In different fields, we are getting together with the industry leaders in every single topic, such as if we are developing a DP training. And of course, our Paris headquarters are making joint venture with the well-known industry leaders in DP. If it's active training, it's the same way. If it's training about Ukraine, it's the same way. We are, of course, getting together with the industry leaders when we are developing these trainings. We are using their expertise also. We need that.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Again, if any of the speakers want to add on this, or any of the participants has any questions, just this is my last warning for today. Anyways, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time we have been online, around 2 hours. I appreciate all the time you have given us for the experience. I'm sure all the presentations have made the webinar more fruitful discussions. Thank you for the speakers, thank you for the sponsors again. And I would like just to finalize, this is our first webinar. We are looking forward for our second webinar, which will be held on 28th of July. The main topic is maritime distance learning. Everybody is invited just to join the discussions, and have a nice day, and thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Looking forward to see you all when this pandemic is over.
Good. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.